The morning air was crisp, soft with a hint of summer, as golden light filtered through the lace curtains of a grand villa nestled on a serene hillside in Jeju. The sun had barely risen, yet the estate was already alive with hushed voices, bustling preparations, and the quiet electricity that comes only once in a lifetime. Today was the day Eun Woo and Moon Ga-young would become husband and wife. Rows of white hydrangeas lined the aisle, blowing gently in the breeze. Guests from all over the world had flown in, from Parisian stylists to Seoul's elite in the entertainment world. But what silenced them all was the moment when Eun Woo appeared, dressed in an elegantly tailored suit, standing beneath an arch of roses, his face unreadable save for the tears that had already welled in his eyes. It was not simply a celebrity wedding. It was the culmination of a story that began long before cameras and scripts, long before red carpets and TV ratings. This was love, raw, enduring, and unexpected. Few had suspected the depth of the bond between Eun Woo and Moon Ga-young. They had played lovers on screen, yes. They had shared fleeting glances, tender gestures, and those ineffable sparks that fans replayed thousands of times online. But beneath the spotlight, far from the buzz of fandom, they were slowly, quietly falling in love. It began, reportedly, during the filming of a romantic drama. What started as rehearsed affection gradually transformed into whispered conversations in trailers, late-night texts about dreams and fears, and lingering looks that meant far more than the script required. Friends close to the couple noticed the shift. One co-star, speaking anonymously, shared, "They didn't realize they were in love until we all saw it. They were each other's common chaos." But fame has a way of distorting even the purest of feelings. There were rumors, denials, and public appearances where they kept their hands to themselves, all while their eyes told a different story. For years, fans speculated, and reporters probed, but neither confirmed anything, until last winter, when a candid photo of the two walking hand in hand through a quiet street in Vienna set the internet ablaze. It wasn't just the photo, it was the way Eun Woo looked at her, protective, tender. And it was the way Ga-young leaned into him as if he were home. Now, under the soft light of an early July sky, they stood ready to make official what their hearts had already known. As guests took their seats, a hush fell over the gathering. The music began, a soft piano melody drifting through the air like a lullaby. And then came the moment no one expected. From the back of the aisle, a graceful figure stepped forward. Dressed in a traditional hanbok with her hair neatly tied back, Eun Woo's mother, Kim Ha-jin, walked slowly, deliberately, her expression a mixture of serenity and sorrow. The crowd turned, surprised. She wasn't scheduled to speak. She hadn't even been seen arriving. Eun Woo's eyes widened. Even Ga-young tilted her head in concern. Mrs. Kim stepped onto the small platform, her hands trembling slightly as she took the microphone. Her voice was soft but unwavering. "I know this day belongs to my son and the woman he loves. I am proud. So proud. But I have carried something in my heart for many years. Something my son does not know. And before he takes this next step, I must say it out loud." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Cameras stopped clicking. Even the birds seemed to fall silent. She looked directly at Eun Woo. Eyes brimmed with tears, and her lips quivered before continuing. "I raised you alone, my son, and I've never regretted a single moment. But what you never knew is, your father didn't die when you were a child. He left." The words landed like thunder. Eun Woo stood frozen, as if the air has been pulled from his lungs. Young reached for his hand, holding it tightly. Mrs. Kim continued, her voice cracking. "I told you he had passed because I wanted to protect you. I wanted you to believe he had loved you deeply. And he did, in his own way. But he couldn't stay. He left us. And I hated him for it. Day. He came." The silence turned electric. One in the audience stood up. A tall, graying man in a dark suit, his face lined with time and sorrow, took a hesitant step forward. Eun Woo looked at him, eyes wide with disbelief. The man did not speak, he simply bowed, deeply. Mrs. Kim stepped down from the platform, placing the microphone gently on the table beside the altar. She walked to Eun Woo, touched his cheek, and whispered something only he could hear. Then she turned and embraced Moon Ga-young. For a moment, no one moved, and the music began again, this time, a soft violin. The wedding had not yet started, But already it had changed everyone who witnessed it. Behind the scenes, their engagement had been equally private, equally profound. In a secluded garden in Florence, neath a canopy of stars, Eun Woo had knelt with a simple ring, his voice shaking as he said, "I loved you silently for years. But today, I speak it aloud. Will you be mine forever?" Ga Young had cried, not out of surprise but because she had waited just as long. Today was not just a wedding. It was a revelation, a homecoming, and a healing. As Mrs. Kim returned to her seat, Ga Young and Eun Woo stepped forward to take their vows, but the crowd was still reeling. The story had only just begun, and what came next would test the very core of what love, family, and forgiveness truly meant. The crowd had not yet recovered from the emotional tremor when Eun Woo turned and walked toward the man who had bowed so deeply. The cameras didn't dare flash. No one spoke. As Eun Woo stood inches from the man who was his father, the weight of years unspoken hung in the air like a fog. "Is it true?" he asked, voice low, barely more than a breath. The man looked up, eyes red-rimmed. "Yes, I'm sorry, my son." There were no theatrics. No shouting. Only silence. And then, the simplest gesture of all, Eun Woo reached out and pulled the man into an embrace. Not tight, not long. But enough. Gasps became sobs. Even the most hardened photographers lowered their lenses. Moon Ga Young stepped forward, her hands clasped, watching the scene unfold not as a bride but as someone who loved this man deeply and wanted nothing more than his peace. The ceremony resumed, but it was clear that everything had shifted. The priest paused, giving space for emotion. Eun Woo took Ga Young's hand. She smiled at him, a smile full of pride and unspoken understanding. "We are here," the priest began gently. "It's not only a union of two souls but a reunion of a heart long lost. Let this love begin not in perfection, but in truth." Their vows were more than words. Eun Woo looked at Ga Young and spoke softly. "We're the anchor in the storm I didn't even know I was in. I promise to build our life on truth, on kindness, and on the quiet strength you give me every day." I Young, tears spilling freely now, replied, "I vow to love not only the man you are but every part of your past that led you here. I choose your scars, your triumphs, and your truths. Forever." The moment they kissed was not met with applause, but a respectful silence, a sacred, reverent pause, as if even the wind dared not interrupt. After the ceremony, the couple met briefly with family in a private garden. There, Eun Woo sat beside his mother and father for the first time in over 20 years. Words were few, but presence spoke louder. The evening reception glowed with lanterns and laughter. Friends shared stories. Music lifted heavy hearts. But the most touching tribute came from Eun Woo himself. He stepped onto the small stage, microphone in hand, and addressed his guests. "Tonight, I became a husband. But I also became a son again." There was not a dry eye in the room. Social media exploded. Eun Woo Ga Young wedding became the #1 trending hashtag worldwide. Fans expressed admiration not only for the beauty of the event, but the vulnerability, the courage, and the authenticity shown. In the days that followed, interviews surfaced. Moon Ga Young shared a quiet conversation she had with Mrs. Kim just before the ceremony. "She told me, love him fully. He's carried things alone for far too long." And I promised her I would. The couple's honeymoon was postponed. Instead, they spent several days in Jeju with both sets of parents, quietly building bridges, planting roots. In a handwritten letter posted to fans on his social media, Eun Woo wrote, "To those who have followed my journey, thank you. I have always lived with a certain silence. Today, I speak. I forgive. I begin anew." So, the wedding that began as a celebration became a healing. The story of two actors turned lovers became something far more, a testament to the power of love to restore not only what was lost, but what was never fully known. Their marriage began not with fairy tale perfection, but with truth, and that, perhaps, is the greatest kind of happily ever after.